Finally, we've got some good news that shows maybe the American dream isn't so dead after all. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, your home for independent, nonpartisan analysis and commentary on politics, media, internet culture, and more. Anyway, I am back home in Miami after my trip to New York City for CNN and then flying back and got super delayed and got home at like 2 a.m. last night. So pardon me if I fall asleep randomly during this video, and also pardon the hair. This is a little embarrassing to admit, but I guess I will. My partner does my hair every single morning before he goes to work, and he is not here right now. He's at a conference, so I had to attempt it myself, and it did not come out amazing. But anyway, I actually have some good news to share with you guys. A fun headline, a positive headline that I think also has some significant, big picture impacts and principles to draw from it, but more than anything, it's just a heartwarming story. So let's look at it from the Wall Street Journal. He earns $33 an hour as a Costco cashier. Now he's a millionaire. Long-tenured workers like cashier Tony Barzar are reliable, experienced, and able to speed shoppers through a checkout line. Costco is willing to keep them around. So basically, the Journal did this really amazing profile of a longtime cashier who now works, he's like the cashier that assists with the self-checkouts, I believe, now in kind of the more evolved era of this technology. And he works for Costco in Arizona, which they're not unionized. He makes more than double the minimum wage. He makes $33 an hour, and he's actually been able to amass over $1 million in his net worth because of his work at Costco and their generous employee benefits. And it's like an amazing, actually capitalist success story that shows how you can work hard and companies will reward that value. And it doesn't have to be necessarily, mandated through socialism or through $40 minimum wage or anything like that. You can still thrive when you provide value, and there are competitive markets where employers have to fight to keep good talent. That's the key, because a lot of times when you have monopolies or you have crony capitalism, then businesses are able to actually not have to compete for workers. And that's when you don't see workers thrive in the same way. And that's obviously unfortunate. But Costco provides us a good example of how this can, in fact, work out to everyone's benefit that you just don't hear about, right? You hear so much about how the evils of capitalism and all this, but you hear a lot less about the success stories. And you also hear a lot less about how it's actually not as bad as you think. We have a lot of issues with affordability and with the economy, but most of them are not driven by like unrestrained capitalism, but by a broken crony capitalist corporatist system, and by, I would say, a very ineffective and inefficient government influencing it all. Anyway, more from the article here. Long-tenured workers like Barzar are Costco's secret weapon. They are reliable and experienced, able to speed shoppers through a checkout line and serve as mentors to newer workers, passing down the company's unique culture, Costco executives say. Barzar's pay and benefits reflect his value to the company. He earns $32.90 an hour, and the holdings in his 401k have boosted his retirement savings to over $1 million, he said. His Costco-sponsored healthcare has a regular visit copay of $15 and a specialty visit copay of $25, well below the national average. In 2009, Barzar's family bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a pool, and they've been able to travel to Europe twice over the past decade. So I'm really happy for this guy and for his family. It sounds like he's a great dude, and he doesn't have an advanced degree or even a specialized trade or anything like that, but he's still been able to provide a good life for his family in part, and have a retirement nest egg in part through generous employee matching with the 401k and through investing and saving his own money through it as well. And that's a key thing here, that it is criminally underutilized, retirement savings and tucking money away. And it's not always just because people have literally no spare cash, but there's a very clear lack of financial planning and personal financial literacy as well with a lot of folks. And they leave enormous lifetime gains on the table, or that they don't take advantage of. And then it's tragic that they then don't have that money to take care of them when they're older and they want to retire. And I actually want to shout out one thing that I think is a very good idea in a lot of ways that the Trump administration is doing. And of course, they have to brand it after the president, which I think is cringe, but the Trump account, where you can have a government match on investments that get tucked away when your child is born, and then that will be, have exponentially grown and increased by the time they're 25 or 55. And some of the statistics on how much you can square away and what it's estimated to be worth by a certain point in their lifetime are enormous, right? They're really mind-blowing amounts, but people just don't necessarily take advantage of this kind of thing. And this government match program that Trump is rolling out could help. It really could. Oh, I hope that we don't have an issue where like liberals or progressives don't want to do it just because it's Trump, because it's like, just do the math. It'll be good for your kid. I hope that's not an issue, but I wouldn't be shocked if it is. Anyway, this is not an outlier example. In fact, it is something the Costco guy who's thrived and seen such financial and kind of life success through working with his company for decades. It's actually not that uncommon, according to the Journal. They write, many thousands of Costco's U.S. hourly workers have over $1 million in their 401k accounts, said Gary Millerchip, the retailer's chief financial officer. The company's investments in workers means they stay for a long time, then ultimately retire. But, quote, you have a pipeline of employees coming behind that group that are also building that level of experience, he said, saying that this is actually cheaper long term. Now, back to Barzar, he actually has taken advantage of the benefits, and he didn't realize how strong some of the benefits that Costco offered were until tragedy did strike his family. More from that story. He also stayed because of the pay and benefits, Barzar said. That became acute early last year when his son-in-law ended his life. Then months later, his wife of 26 years, a former Costco employee in the bakery department, was diagnosed with stage 3 brain cancer. His Costco health insurance covered the full cost of his wife's 3 brain surgeries. He took paid leave for nearly a year to help his family. He also used the retailer's therapy benefits to cope, he said, which further drove home how comprehensive the insurance was. Now, this is an interesting example because these companies are not, Costco is not required to provide a lot of that at that generous a level. These aren't regulations. This isn't forced on the companies. They do it to support their workers because economically it makes sense long term to invest in the workers, and because they have to compete for labor. And that's the key part. Workers can and do thrive in a capitalist free market environment when there is strong competition for labor. And that's the key part, to have a thriving economy where jobs are plentiful, and then companies have to offer better and better opportunities and benefits and pay for workers to attract and keep them. That's how you have a thriving pro-worker outcome, even in a capitalist economy. But when you allow, monopolies, or when you allow subsidies and regulations and all these things to glom up the system and block that kind of competition, then you don't have the same kind of outcomes for workers. But then that's not really capitalism that is the culprit, right? It's the same kind of interventions in the first place that a lot of anti-capitalists are advocating for more of. Now, finally here, this is interesting to me as well. Barzar had been asked to become a supervisor, but declined. He likes the direct contact he has with shoppers as a cashier and feels he can act as an effective mentor to other employees, in part because he isn't their boss. I would say this is my calling, right where I'm at, he said. So I'm really happy for this guy. And it's kind of a sweet and heartwarming story because you hear so many, if it bleeds, it leads stories in the news, because they really do that. It's like tragedy strikes as man's entire family drowns after lightning strikes 6 times on their yacht or whatever. You just hear so much negative stuff because the media has such a strong negativity bias that I thought it was lovely to see this story trending and to see people, actually a lot of people are doing well. And it's not all doom and gloom in the world, because there's a super doomer, everything is terrible, things were so much better in the past mentality that you find pervasive online and in political commentary and everything. And there's a couple culprits at play there. One is that obviously we have real problems and real struggles that persist. But 2 is also a strong bias towards negativity in algorithms and attention. I've even experienced it personally, right? It's like I'll get 100 comments that I read, and a bunch of them will be so positive, be like, I love your work, you inspire me, all this stuff. And those I just kind of read and then forget. And then the two ones that like say something really uniquely nasty about me just stick in my brain. I don't know why, but as humans, we have this strong negativity bias. And I think it's important for our own mental health and palate cleansing that we actively resist it and try to also pay attention to good and positive stuff that's happening in the world. And then the other thing I think that I blame for this as well is that there's a very rose-colored glasses. There are very strong and frankly delusional rose-colored glasses that people apply to the past. Like there's this mythical idea that in the 90s everyone could just afford everything and was doing so much better than everyone is now, or whatever golden time period era, or that everyone has to work 3 separate jobs, and back in the day you could just pay for your whole family with just one income. And there's sometimes a grain of truth to it, but oftentimes the statistics are totally different. Like an average hours worked is lower now than it was in that time, or home ownership rates are not that different, or what have you. And it's just extremely, you see this. This is most typified for me when you see people sharing memes about like what the past was like, and what they're actually sharing are adverts like from the 1960s or whatever that were published in drawings from magazines that show the man and the wife and the 3 kids and the dog and the white picket fence. And it's like, that was a commercial. That wasn't real life. That wasn't representative of the average person. There was tons of terrible stuff happening behind the scenes in tons of people's lives, and there were people struggling that weren't put in the commercial. It's like if you used a Peloton commercial, right? 50 years from now, you used a Peloton commercial from 2026 to try to show what life was like in 2026. You'd be like, everyone was so healthy and fit and thin back then, which is obviously not true. Like, it's not true at all. And yet you have people sharing these old memes, and they're like, this is what they took from us. And it's just, I understand it's a natural human bias towards negativity and towards looking at the past through rose-colored glasses. But it really is important to remind ourselves, I think, that all hope is not lost, that opportunity does still exist for people, that we still, in many ways, do exist and enjoy a higher standard of living than most of our predecessors and forebearers. And then honestly, the poorest, even today, the poorest people in America enjoy a standard of living that is among the highest percentile in all of human history, right? It's like a poor person in 2026 walks around still with a supercomputer in their pocket and probably is in a massive caloric surplus. I think it's important to remember that for most of human history, people starved and died in famines. And even when you go look back at like these periods that are romanticized, like the 1950s or 1960s, then the amount of dangerous physical labor that people were doing back then and dying in accidents at work compared to now is like night and day. The hours that they would work, the working conditions they were in are so much better now, so much more, virtual jobs and laptop jobs and all these things. And I don't say any of this to discount the problems or to say that, oh, well, the only problem now is that these kids spend all their money on avocado toast, or that's why they can't buy a house or anything like that. Like, no, obviously housing is very expensive and there are systemic flaws at issue there. But there's also a role still for personal responsibility. And I do think people go too far in the opposite direction, and they ignore the fact that ultimately a lot of your success is still a function of your choices, and people can and do thrive despite the challenges that we face. And it also matters regionally where you are. So, for example, somewhere like Arizona doesn't have the same policies as in California or New York City, where you're seeing these cost of living crisis. And that's important to note. He could buy a home partially probably because there is much more ability to construct homes in where he lives in Arizona, and there's much more supply in that market than there is in New York City, where there's essentially negative supply amid massive demand increase and population growth because of government restrictions on building and constructing and expanding housing. But then it's like, well, now all these young people living in New York City are like, I'll never be able to own a home, and the American dream is dead because of capitalism. It's like, not really. And you still probably could if you live somewhere else potentially. So I just wanted to share this story to give y'all a little bit of a, hope core for the day, a little bit of good news. All is not doom and gloom. there's actually a lot of positive developments happening. Cancer treatments getting better and better. We can now extend people's lives for years and years when just 10 or 15 years ago, their cancer would have been a death sentence. All this technological innovation is going to compound and even accelerate some of these developments even more. And so, yes, when you open up the headlines or you watch the news, and I'm not above this. I'm not saying, actually, my channel is probably an example of this as well. Most of the things you'll see are negative, right? It's like crazy was said, crazy person did bad thing. This is falling apart. This tragedy just happened. And all of that is important to acknowledge and discuss. And I myself, I'm sure, play into it, but it's just a reflection of what people click on and choose to tune into. But let's not forget that there's still a lot of good things happening out there, and there's still a lot of opportunity in this world, and there's still many people thriving, and we shouldn't take that for granted, and we shouldn't ignore it either. That's my take on this story that was trending. You guys will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Do make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you aren't yet, hit the like button while you're at it to kind of send the algorithmic signal that you support my content. YouTube is not prioritizing long-form content. They're pushing and spamming shorts and other stuff. So if you want to boost my content or engage with it in any way, that's very much appreciated. And really the best way, though, is to become a channel member. Hit the join button with the link in the description to support me and my content. I call out the left and the right, and I try to have a chill, not unhinged perspective on things. And that is unfortunately not the best business model for going viral and making millions of dollars. So I do need support from viewers like you. I also read member comments and questions in videos. So if you're able to, do hit the join button or click the link in the description to support my work and or to have me respond to your feedback or question potentially that you drop down below. With that, guys, we'll leave it there on this story, and we'll be back more a little bit later with another truly crazy story, actually. So stay tuned for that one.